Good morning, everybody. We thought it would make sense just to give some context. I know that we were just introduced, but to give some context to the answers that these three esteemed procurement leaders are about to give you, we want to just get a general sense of the organization, size and scope of the procurement team, and a sense of the spend as well. So, Ilona, could we maybe start with you?
Thank you so much. My name is Ilona Piekoszewska. I'm Global Head of Indirect Procurement at Givaudan. Some may ask, what is Givaudan? We do the amazing fragrances and also the flavors. We are a Swiss-based company with 4 billion spent in procurement.
Very good.
David.
Good morning, everyone. Dave Armstrong. I work for BP. I'm the VP of Strategy and Sustainability, which is essentially all the center of excellence activities from contracting to digital garage, which I'll talk about. And BP as a whole, we spend about $28 billion in our supply chain, got 31,000 suppliers, probably too many, hence why we're trying to figure out how to consolidate that. And we've got about 150 warehouses across the globe as well, so a bit of a size and scale as to where BP is.
Great. Anne?
My name is Anne Eling. I'm working for Tesa, which is a global leader in adhesive technology. We have about 1 billion spent in procurement with a very global footprint, which is a challenge, but also a big chance. I have a similar role, actually, like David, so I'm also leading the excellence team with compliance, processes, digitalization, topics, and obviously currently a lot of AI.
Awesome, awesome. So fast-tracking AI, right? So, let's talk about getting started. And so, Ilona, let's start with you, right? So organizationally, what was the catalyst or what was the driver that said, now is the time for us to start thinking about and actually doing AI?
No, very good question. I think many of us has asked this question, but I would like, to bring you a little bit how I feel about the AI in procurement. And imagine yourself in the airport, you go through duty-free store, and you have those different perfumes, and you are wondering, which actually I would wear, every day. For me, it's a little bit, the same with AI in procurement. We have so many solutions at our hand, but which one are we choosing today? So how did we move on at Givaudan, with AI? I think, first of all, it was really all about being curious and turning the curiosity into the urgency. Yes, so I felt it was, the first thing. But obviously, we had our challenges. Yes, the business was growing. We had to catch up. Yes, we wanted to be a real partner at the table. But, with the high workload, the supply chain, complexity, it was really tough. So, we ran fast 5 pilots during 12 months.
Okay.
Hear me here, no excuses. And we realized that, actually turning back to where we were, even after those pilots, it's extremely difficult because you become, much more higher added value to your business. So this is how we started.
Very interesting.
Very good. I think for us, it's about 2 years ago, we were on an ERP transformation journey like many of us here are. And I think it's when we started to look at the Eloise Epstein, the spider graph map that I think she's now retired earlier this year. And we just saw the proliferation of so many tech solutions and tools coming into the marketplace. And we as BP were honestly naturally worried that we were going to get left behind and that we weren't in the forefront and making the use of all these new tools and opportunities that we had. So that's what we looked at. The ERP journey is going to take many years. And so how do we make sure we get in there and don't get left behind and ultimately don't have the competitive advantage that we need to continue with?
Mm-hmm. So, Anne, I don't know, there's many scents of the AI, to use the perfume analogy, right? But what was the driving force for you?
Actually, so we have the advantage that our global tech stack is very harmonized. So we had a good starting point, actually, to now look for AI solution that we can quickly roll out globally, which is really good. Tesa is a very innovative company. So the whole topic of AI mindset, AI-first mindset is very broadly spread to the whole organization. Sure. So we didn't even have to fight for it somehow. So we came up from the team with good ideas already. And then at the same time, we were very much supported by a global communication pushed by the board, pushed by the whole management. Yeah.
Got it. So David, right? So for organizations, and I'm sure many in the audience have already started their journey, but probably some have not. When you think about getting started, right? What are some recommendations? What are one or two things that you would say, definitely put on your agenda here?
Yeah, I really like the mantra: think big, start small, and scale fast, and that really rings true within BP, within procurement, and within our digital sort of journey at the moment. And certainly being at DPW, it stretches our mind. We get to think, we get to see what's out there, the art of the possible, agentic AI, agents. We're certainly not in that space yet. We don't have agents. We'd love to get there. We know that's where we want to go. So we're thinking big, we're dreaming big, a dream of what we could become and transform our procurement function. But we're not there yet, so we've got to start small, where we are today, and then we've got to scale fast. And so 3 things generally that have worked for us over the last 2 years. Firstly, we set up what we call a digital garage. So within the procurement function, we have roughly about 5 people, and it's their sole job to go and find and see and be at these sort of events, new different tech solutions. And within the garage, we then do proof of concepts, we can then pilot, and then from that, scale up as well. And we have our own budget. So we have a team, and we have our own budget that's protected from the IT and technology budget. So we can then use that and make sure that we can then really deploy into these pilots and test these new technologies. I think secondly, it's really important for us to start with the business problem we're trying to solve, rather than the next shiny tech solution and try and shoehorn that back into the organization. So the team, for example, have just run a hackathon, or many hackathons within the different procurement teams. And many of those teams don't have a clue what's out there. They just head down delivering their procurement job. But they do know they have lots of business problems and issues within their working that they want us to try and solve. So we have a backlog of them. We then rank them in terms of efficiency of the organization and effectiveness getting up after our third-party spend. We rank them in ease of implementation and impact. And then we agree as a procurement leadership team on an annual basis the short list of those that will then make the pilots into the digital garage for that following year. And I think third area I'd pick up on is governance. And I think part of this theme is around how do you innovate at pace, but also have the right checks and balances and guardrails. And certainly within the garage concept, there's a bit of governance getting in. So we do the hackathons, we have the PLT reviews before then the pilots get initiated, and a bit of technology and IT oversight. But we have quite stringent checks and balances to get out of the garage to go to full-scale deployment and scale-up. From our technology team, clearly the integration across our existing landscape is key. The IT team's budgets, and then our own user feedback as well, from both internally within procurement and the business. And so we've got a number of metrics and KPIs we score ourselves on that we agree before the pilots start, and then we have to hit before then we're allowed out of the garage. And typically the pilots would last 6 months to a year. And then from that, we scale up. And they've been really successful. Over the last 2 years, we've got many of them that are out there at the moment with sort of Sergio and Kiovar, Axiom, Amazon for Business. Many of these sort of tech solutions have sort of come through that digital garage and now in deployment and scale up within BP.
And I don't know if you had a garage or what was your approach?
Actually, I like the garage terminology. It's nice.
Yes, it's really good.
So at Tesa, we call it Agent Factory. So we work a lot in a way that we think in different use cases. So what we did in procurement was actually looking back, what was a bit naively that we said, okay, we have the source-to-pay process, and we have different pain points alongside this process.
Okay.
And then we looked, okay, our strategic pillars that we want to work on in the next years, which use cases would be most interesting to follow up on. And then we tried to develop agents on our own. So we had actually like a 3-layer approach. So looking back, I can say that it's a 3-layer approach. So we have like really easy use cases where teams, like my very ambitious team is then looking into, okay, how can we develop agents or prompts on ourselves? There could be easy ones, like we search through this SharePoint and provide the right information. We do a financial risk check of an agent and provide that to the procurement team, such things. And then there was the next level that was rather sophisticated use cases for agents. So agents that would be connected then to our tech stack with integration with interfaces, right? And this one we couldn't do alone, but we have a strong IT supporting us there. And we have already a very nice use case live, which is a risk agent where we do proper risk screening from several perspectives for our preferred suppliers on the web. So really, yeah, I think very nice case where we also, save now license fees for a SaaS solution. And then the third level would rather be like these really tech stack integration in terms of really, choosing one of the awesome startup solutions that's here on the market and really put it on top of our ERP solution. And this would obviously take a bit longer, take a bit more preparation. And what we do here is look for real guided buying for purchase to pay, because we always have the challenge that people don't like, the PR interface. So here we chose a solution that is now currently being implemented by my team, and it's very promising. So these 3 layers, I think it's good to look at it a bit differently, because the first layer is like really hands-on, quick learnings, the team can do it themselves, and this is also fostering then the adoption in the team.
How many agents do you have today?
I think like really good working, maybe 3 to 4. And then there are the ones that are in the pipeline. So
any challenges with rolling them out on top of the systems you have?
I think the adoption is a topic, right? So people need to be open to work with those agents. So we have an awesome agent that is called Negotiate, negotiation preparation. And then the team needs to take it and say, well, okay, maybe this guy is giving me some input that I can use, and not, sitting there and say, well, I negotiate for 30 years. Why would that help me, So.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, right? So, I mean, talking about change, right? I think, all the talk about AI, sometimes I think it gets lost that AI, it's still a technology initiative, right? And so there's the people, there's the process, there's the technology, and there's the data. But Anne, let's ask about your approach on the adoption side, right? On the human side. Tell us a little bit about what your strategy was for adoption.
Yeah, I think it's our major challenge, and it's very important because we can do a lot in a garage or in an agent factory or whatever. People don't work with it. So we have an approach that we have a learning journey predefined for the global organization. So the whole teams, every team is going through dedicated trainings throughout the year. This is one thing that is really helpful, I think, to bring people to understand what are agents, what is AI, and also lose a bit the fear about this topic. And what we do in procurement, or in general, maybe one more general thing, we have AI ambassadors. So we have a community of AI ambassadors spread all over the organization that should facilitate the use case ideation, and then supported obviously by a very strong governance from our IT and a value-based evaluation framework that lies behind it. And what we do in procurement on top, because we still experience this, we call it passive resistance. And, I didn't have time to try it. So what we're doing is, my team is really strong in that, having a monthly call with the global team for AI developments. So we talk about new prompts, new agents. We did even an agent contest, so asking the team to develop their own agents and having celebrate the winner, such things. And I think that is very nice to have a bit hands-on learning for the whole team.
And that agent factory all sits within procurement?
The agent factory is driven by our IT.
IT?
Yeah. So that is really well supported from the IT. That's awesome, yeah.
Cool.
Ilona, so talk a little bit about your own organization, right? Is there some, knowledge sharing? Is there reskilling? How do you get your team to, fast track AI?
Well, I think it's a good question. I think the first month how we we gave the tools to the team. We, provided training. We motivated, but we didn't see, to be honest, a huge movement. So we changed a little bit approach, yes, and our KPIs turned less to the savings, more to the adoption, and this is where we actually saw a huge change, yes. Not only change, in the adoption, but also in delivering the value. So I think the team also saw, well, if we work with the tools, we do better, we deliver more, and we have more time for the added value. So I think this was a a changing point in our organization.
Okay, yeah. So David, your organization, obviously a massive organization, right? And so, thinking big, I think is, even thinking small for some companies, you're thinking big. But to get it to scale as quickly as you want, talk about some of the strategies you have to get people comfortable with the concept of AI and comfortable with actually using it.
Yeah, no, I love some of the concepts fellow panelists have sort of mentioned. We have what's called sort of accelerator skills within the procurement function. We've got sort of 6 of them the last sort of year or two that sort of sit above the sort of core procurement competencies that you'd expect us to have. And one of them is digital acceleration. So we have ambassadors, we have change accelerator squads to really try and accelerate the use of AI, the training, the adoption. But there's much more we need to be doing.
Okay.
And just hearing sort of the agent factory, I'm jealous of it. I really want that. I think the digital garage has been super successful, and we'll continue with it. But I think just from hearing today as well and some of the talks, how do we move to tackle our data to not get it perfect, but then also use the agentic AI and agents to sit on top? And I think, the couple of areas we really want to home in on is around intake and orchestration.
Okay.
And our tail spend. I said we've got about 31,000 suppliers. They generally all sit within the procurement sort of oversight. I think those sort of 2 areas are big ones that we want to get after and optimize ultimately as well. But then once we've done that as well, how do we sit that agentic layer on top? And I think that'll take time within our ERP landscape. We've got over 45 ERP systems, but I think we'll get there.
Yeah. So massive, like 45 ERPs is at a different scale. But so obviously, you're right, AI, powered by, driven by data, right? And so the quality of what AI delivers to you is going to depend in large part on the quality of the inputs. So David, let's start with you first, right? So talk a little bit, right? So you mentioned governance, and you mentioned 45 ERPs. So this is a big amount of it's huge, it's massive. So talk a little bit about your approach on how you're preparing the data, how you're managing it.
Yep. It's not perfect today, and our strategy to deal with our data is not perfect either, and it's one of my team's sort of focus areas. So give a little bit of context. Procurement, about 2 months ago, we moved from reporting to the CFO within BP, and now we've moved to the EVP of technology. And one of the reasons for that is the need to really drive the technology adoption. And BP as a whole see procurement as a strategic function and as a lever ultimately to help control our third-party costs. And so that's why we've moved to group technology. We've just appointed a technology officer.
Within procurement.
Within procurement now. So they sit in technology, but they're fully seconded to us. Now with a team with data architects and data scientists to really then help supercharge our infrastructure within procurement, but also our data. And I think, certainly I've been challenged today on some of the talks listened to, our data doesn't need to be perfect. What is clean, let's start there.
Yeah.
And then we'll harmonize more and more as we go. And as our ERP systems rationalize over the next few years as well, that will help. So I think it's a multi-stranded approach that we need to take on managing our data, but lots more to do. And one of the takeaways from me and one of the things we're working on is a data strategy. So how do we make sure we're very intentional around how we're going to manage and clean our data to enable AI?
Right, and so then with the reporting structure and that shift, and now you have your own CTO and you're hiring data scientists, right? So you're responsible for procurement's data, but in conjunction with
Absolutely.
IT.
Yes.
So just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we will ultimately own it.
Yeah.
So probably at some point I'll appoint a chief data officer as well. So ultimately that sits with us. But right now within BP, it's a little fragmented with where the standards, the taxonomy sits, the KPIs, the metrics. And so we want to bring all that together and make sure we standardize and have a consistent data layer and data governance upon which then we can build from.
Right. So Anne, you were talking about sort of spend harmonization, and that was maybe the jumping off point for your AI initiative. Talk a little bit about the data management in a bigger picture, what you're doing around sort of the cleansing and the harmonization and the governance as well.
Yeah, data, I think we have very similar challenges. So the data topic is very crucial to make AI happen, right? We know that very much. So what we did actually, because we know that we are not so strong in that, we started really with more process-driven AI topics. But we're now really at the same starting point, actually, to say, okay, we need to look at that more. We need to have a database that is, searchable, and that where we can do advanced spend analytics on. So that is one of our big next topics to go for. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So, technology, right? So Ilona, right? So given all of the different perfumes in the world, given all of the fantastic technology vendors that are in the room and out in the pavilion, talk a little bit about how you went through the solution selection process and what were your considerations?
Yeah, I think this is a great topic, yes. As we are procurement, we are also expected to follow the procurement process, yes, even when selecting the digital tools, yes. My view is that we can't really follow the common procurement process when, at least starting with the pilots, yes, because you even don't know sometimes what this tool can do for you. Of course, you define your problem and you look for the solution. But I think, if you go with a standard process, you will just tick the box. It meets this requirement, but you really don't know what you can do on top. And I think the beauty we have today with all the startups, organization, it's we can co-create, yes? So we are not getting something off the shelf. We and our teams, I have to say, they can be really actively, co-creating with those companies. And this is also what is driving the engagement of the teams to see, well, I give a feedback, they incorporate that, and what's nice, we don't give the bill back, that it was custom for Givaudan.
Okay.
So, it's also a different approach, and we've been, truly enjoying, the different partnerships with those organizations, because this is how, the procurement problems are being solved. So that's one of the approach. The other approach, I think, why we are all here, yes, I think DPV is really excellent opportunity to really find, what's a great match for the companies you want to work with, to support you, also to get inspired, exchange with your peers. So I would say, yes, RFP to an extent, of course, you need to do your proper due diligence and so on, but ticking all the boxes, definitely not.
Yeah, and I mean, when you're looking at technology vendors, how what are you looking for? I guess is the big question.
For vendors, you mean for solutions?
Yes.
Yeah. So like I said, we started with very single use cases, right? That we did case by case, and we also had some major learnings. I think I liked really very much on the McKinsey speech this morning. That was said that it's a learning competition, and I agree. Because the faster you learn, the quicker you can adapt your strategy, right? So we started with really isolated use cases, and what we're doing now, and I think that is a challenge, to go more for enterprise architecture solution, right? To see that it could be a one-way lane if you only do isolated use cases. So rather look into how do these use cases overlap? Yep. Where do we see common interfaces that we need to streamline those interfaces, right? And then have a platform that you work on that really connects all these agents and fancy stuff you can do today. And that's the next level for us.
David, talk a little about BP's approach.
Yeah, I think it's what I mentioned before around the digital garage. We take quite a neutral approach to our technology landscape.
Okay.
And very much it's around what's the problem we're trying to solve, and then making sure we can match it against it. However, I do think it's now starting to rebalance, because the agents that you're talking about, that's something almost you have to proactively force on. And I think the teams just don't know what's out there, really. And so I think certainly a learning for me is to try and get those agentic workflows and agents on top. And I think that's something we proactively will need to push the other way. But other than that, we're quite a neutral in terms of who would select.
Right. So we're talking about fast tracking, but also, right, we need to be managing and thinking about the long term, right? And so, and when you look at, how do you start these initiatives while also building towards something bigger and more sustainable? Talk a little bit about the approach and the thought process behind it.
Yeah. So, like I said, we have these quick wins that we I think we should continue doing, right? Because it's also a lot of adoption in the team that they really try out things on their own, and so we should definitely follow up on that. But then we have the long bets, where we really have to think about how can we restructure our whole ERP setup, where do we need deep integration in our tech, and this will not happen from today to tomorrow. So doing both in parallel, I think that's the key, right? To keep on doing quick wins, and at the same time thinking ahead and saying, okay, where do I want to be in a few years, and what's the target picture, and how do we get there? But it's also the major challenge, because the quick wins are a lot easier, right?
Sure. Yeah, Ilona, talk a little about it.
Yeah, I think, delivering on the pilots and value, super important, yes. It also builds the credibility and trust within the organization. And you're not just, being a center, that creates additional costs, but actually you are able to deliver the value, either it's a P&L, is it also the cash flow? You are gaining the visibility really to the executive level at the organizations. I think that's also super important to make it success. Of course, if it fails from time to time, yes, we should allow that to our teams, also to our partners, and help them also, to learn from those failures. I think this is really what a real partnership with those suppliers, those startups really means to me, and we should be also have the level of forgiveness and support them to make this journey really a success for both.
David?
I think maybe just a different lens is around our people. We've got to remember we're doing this not in end to itself. The end is not to have a beautiful orchestrated supply chain end to end, though I'm sure we'd all wish we had that with underlying data as well. Actually, we're doing this to enable our people to be much more effective in what they do and how they do it, and ultimately support BP in this case, get after our third-party spend and control our costs and become ultimately more competitive. So that's why we have to really focus on the why as well as the what and how we're sort of rolling it out. And certainly I've observed, even as tools come out the garage, they don't just get adopted on the next day. You have to keep working hard, and it can take even another year or two for full-scale adoption, cross-learning, sharing, and you've got to keep at it. You can't just keep throwing more and more tools. It's a mindset shift the organization needs to have.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would absolutely agree, right? So often, right, there's that first wave and the big push, and you hit that target, and then you just sort of coast on that. You see so many organizations not continuing to just set the benchmark higher, set the target higher, set the usage higher. And I think that's a lost opportunity. But we're coming to the end, and we want you guys to pull out your crystal balls and imagine that you find yourselves here at DPW 2027, right? How do you think AI will have impacted your role in the organization, but also the entire procurement function, right? You can start to see the progression and where this is going. But Ilona, let's start here.
Yeah, so my imagination would go really towards how our team and AI agents and technology really works together. How the orchestration goes a little bit like the Disney experience. I love to refer to that, really have this experience as well. And obviously, how we turn the risk into the opportunities, how we create the value, and how we can really not just be a function, procurement as a function, but really the agents that can really impact the business, and not tomorrow, but really today.
Still within the shortish term of next 1 to 2 years, I want our procurement function, the procurement practitioners, to come in every morning and be able to find their data and see what's happening in the dashboard. It's coordinated. They don't have to go in multiple systems to find it. It's there, and it gives them proper insights and actions that they can then do their job. And then I think, secondly, I want the feedback from the business users to say, no longer is procurement a black box. I don't even know how to get in. And when I do get in, I have no idea where it is in the system. I want them to also be feeding back saying, I know how this works, or I may not need to know how it works, but I know where my request is, and it's being delivered, and procurement is stepping up.
Great. Anne?
I could echo that. That's a nice vision. I think that our roles will also change, right? We go from operational steering more to overseeing an ecosystem that works, right? And we need to make sure that we have ethical usage of AI, that we have like the right data behind and the right guidelines for the AI to work. And in addition, having a culture of continuous learning and innovation. I think that is what we need to foster for the next years, because it will not slow down, it will even speed up, right? So that is what I envision also when it comes to our roles. I think procurement will be faster, smarter, and better connected in the next 2 years.
Fantastic, fantastic panel. Please join me in giving a round of applause to Ilona, David, and Anne.